Welcome to the Business End of Agility podcast, hosted by New Zealand's Business Agility Meetup community. We're here to bring you real-world stories from innovative organisations and forward-thinking leaders around the globe. We're going to explore all facets of business agility, from adaptive leadership and evolving company cultures to emerging ways of working, processes and technologies. I'm your host for the session, Bianca, and thank you for joining us. Kia ora and welcome. Today's episode is the age of AI. Is your business ready? Here's the thing, AI is not going to change the world. It already is. Statistics show that up to 40% of roles could be impacted in today's workforce. On the flip side, McKinsey Global Institute state that AI could generate an additional 13 trillion in global economy by 2030. So businesses that leverage AI will be able to process data and make decisions faster, offer their customers increased personalisation, and reduce their operating costs. But the question is AI at the top of every business's agenda? Is it a part of their strategy? Are businesses already working to harness this new technology, and are they doing enough? Do they understand how to even evaluate and act to integrate AI into the business? So I'm not going to answer all of those questions myself today. Joining me in today's conversation is three fantastic speakers. We have Andy Cooper, who is an avid researcher, user, and speaker on AI, and we'll be hearing from him later on about how he's implementing AI in his organization. Ryan Ashton is a social commentator, fractional CRO, and technology guru. And we have Justin Cabani, expert AI coach and consultant, and former advertising CEO. So I think that's a pretty good panel to help me out in today's conversation. But let's warm up a little bit first. So I'm quite keen to understand, before we get into the nitty-gritty hard stuff, what is your favorite AI that you have or use to date? Tell us a little bit about that. And Justin, we're going to kick off with you. What is your favorite go-to currently?
I'm going to kick off with something incredibly practical, and it's Read.ai, which is a plugin that I use to Zoom. It works with Teams and other platforms as well. So it records your conversation. Right at the end of it, you're going to get a transcript. You're going to get a recording, which is really handy. But you're also going to get a summary about what that call was about. You're going to get chapter notes for what you talked about, as well as an action list. And then one step further, it'll take you through and talk to you about some coaching. Have you used non-inclusive terms, or the number of times that you exceeded the recommended word per minute limit, and those kind of things. So, and if you run that in an organization, you can also see how your team's performing around some of these objectives as well. But the reason why I love it so much is because I feel like I get to be entirely present in the conversations that I'm having, and rather than having to lean back on my notes, which, to be honest, look like a bit of a doctor's scrawl by the end of the day. And then so to just be able to go back to those calls and take that transcript and then do other things with the transcript as well.
That's amazing. I like the feedback too. You can't take offense to an AI giving you feedback. Well, I suppose you could, but it seems easier to hear.
You can ignore it.
That's right. Nobody would know if you did. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, so I was going to start with actually something. First of all, I'm not a technology guru, but I do work in the technology industry. I should have fixed that in the intro. My AI co-pilot, Fireflies, wasn't enabled to fix that. So I will blame myself, not the AI. But I'll hold this up. So my favorite thing at the moment is scrolling through Instagram for new Star Wars movies created with AI by some pretty clever people. And I haven't actually dabbled in doing this, but that's the Millennium Falcon flying past the Boeing. You can see the wing of the Boeing plane there. So I find that fascinating, and we were talking about them before. But coming back to your Read AI, I used Fireflies back in the early days to settle an argument about what was said and not said in a meeting, and what was contractually right and wrong. And of course, Fireflies helped me win.
The Fireflies don't lie.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. The summary and who said what, it's right there. It's been taken down accurately by AI, so pretty cool.
That's an unexpected benefit right there. I saw on Instagram as well today, somebody was saying that that ability to make movies of your own and be able to incorporate things could be coming out even more or more opportunities for it. So that sounds very exciting for people like myself who feel like, yeah, I could be creative, but would obviously need more than probably just AI's help for it. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I love those practical things. I think that's probably for me the most useful thing in Teams is actually that, or Copilot 365 in Teams, the ability to be able to sort of capture notes and so on. So that's maybe not as cool as your one, Justin, but practically really useful.
Mm.
But for me, the most fun thing that I enjoy playing around with other music ones like Suno and Udio,
Yeah.
because I'm not naturally not that creative, but it gives me that superpower of and quite uplifting as well. The ability to sort of generate songs about people or things that going on, and in a specific style is incredibly uplifting. So if you haven't tried one of them, they're really fun. Good team
Fantastic.
building sort of thing to do as well.
Great. It's also good if you don't have singing talent, which I neither have the talent for lyrics nor for actual pitch. So that sounds handy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Andy, I've seen my kids using these tools outside of school, really, and it just throws a whole new light on the education process for them, right? Like when I was at
absolutely.
school, music lesson was tapping a triangle or a tambourine, and then it slowly progressed through high school to us having digital music available. But here, they can actually create stuff themselves,
Yeah.
and it's just so empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, and the people make educational ones as well, so they do it to to on a specific topic, and it's a great way of actually learning stuff as well. It makes it interesting, especially in this TikTok generation of 30-second concentration. It's actually a good way for them to actually concentrate and maybe learn something.
Yeah, well, generationally, there is a bit of a difference between us, isn't there? I mean,
Yeah,
my musical education was the recorder.
Mm.
Everyone else on the call had the recorder as your musical intuition. The difference
Yeah.
between the recorder and these apps available for kids today is just, so huge.
absolutely.
Okay, well, let's slip into the realm of business. And Ryan, you're connected quite heavily, as we were saying earlier on, in that technology community. And in particular, you run the A Few Quiet Yarns community group. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And also, from that community and what you're hearing on the ground, what's the sentiment around AI and businesses?
Yeah, thank you. So, A Few Quiet Yarns has been running for 16 years, but for the last 2 years, I've not run an event. So, I'm running the first one coming up shortly, which will be great. But to backfill the point of the question, I've been attending just about every event there is on AI. So, probably one of the more interesting stories I've been hearing is coming out of Fonterra at the moment, and how they've been doing. They had 200 use cases put forward and have trialed 50. And this is from Stephen Morrison, who's been speaking at a range of events. And the three use cases that have come back. But one of the really interesting points that he talks fervently about is that it's not so much an IT picture, it's a change management picture. So if you think of the simple thing of how many prompt engineering cheat sheets have you seen floating through LinkedIn, you probably use ChatGPT to summarize the 1,000 or million odd ChatGPT prompt sheets. So that continual learning, and it sort of talks to the continual evolution. So we've talked about Read AI, Fireflies, Copilot, ChatGPT, probably all the black box examples that are pretty common out there. And there are people that are obviously building their own. I went to a Data in Bytes event and saw the show by Mr. Scaloni, but he used Databricks RAGs, which is basically a set of componentry within the Databricks platform to build his own LLM or large language model. So
Wow.
it was quite interesting to see from the depths of technology through to the high-level business discussions, what people are doing. But there seems to be a real consistency is that it's over business productivity, while there's all of these, like we just talked about these apps and my Millennium Falcon, for example, there seems to be thousands of them doing very specific things and the major players doing it better than most. So that's kind of my wrap-up or summary of what's happening.
Yeah, fantastic. I hear that term productivity coming through quite a lot. Justin, obviously people go to you to consult on what they should be doing or how they can be doing things with AI. I guess, personally or business? I know you offer some free chats on LinkedIn for people to come and chat with you. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think like probably the first thing that I always want to establish with people is like, what is AI? Because I sent out a bunch of proposals last year. I talked with a bunch of people, and I thought there was this like 3-4 month window to train the whole world on implementing AI into their organizations, and then I was kind of a bit disappointed with the uptake, if I'm honest, last year. And a lot of those people came back this year, and ones who I thought I wouldn't hear back from were all of a sudden like, oh, this is on the agenda. And then I think it's important to note what I saw is when we talk to enterprise level clients, they're often saying we're doing AI. And when you talk to small business, they say you hear I'm doing AI or I'm using AI. And the difference between those two is that at an enterprise level client, you might have your fraud protection, you might have your error detection, you might actually have AI, custom AI software that's built in. You know, the kind of stuff, if we think in a practical sense, like AI has been used on us for many years already in the Amazon. You know, we all have different Amazon feeds, we all have different Netflix and Spotify feeds, those kind of things. And really, what changed the world in that November 2022 was that it became like a consumer tool. And what we're seeing at small business level is business execs and business leaders actually using these tools themselves, which hasn't quite flowed through as much to enterprise level. In part because of the time available and the requirements and just the way projects work. And so I think it's a really important distinction. A lot of enterprise clients are walking around feeling like they're going forward in the AI game without realizing what small and medium sized businesses are doing in terms of
Yeah.
using the AI tools themselves. And we talked about Copilot and ChatGPT and Midjourney and these off the shelf tools which have incredible power. So that was a long intro there into what people are looking for. But yeah, this idea of productivity is there. And I think uh, there is this urgency of they feel like they're behind the eight ball and other people are doing it. And what am I going to do? And what's going to happen to my business? And the term we often hear is that it's the next decade is going to be AI powered businesses taking business off those that are not, that it's going to be horses racing against Porsches, right? So there's all these like
Yeah.
urgency statements that are out there. But one of the most practical ways that I'm using it is to, say to an exec, like we're all carrying around this cognitive overload, like this wish list of things that we want to do. And what I want to show people and empower people to do is like, how do we take one thing off that wish list, know how to prompt or know which tool to use, and to be able to solve it ourselves rather than carrying that to bed with us tonight and the next night and the next night. And out of that, determine, okay, there's something real here. We need to brief in a project and an agency or whatever, put a budget aside. Or, oh my gosh, there was nothing wrong here in the first place. Like I can just take that you know, out of my head for now. Or I can solve this myself.
So, a real theme about this personal productivity idea that can obviously lead to more productivity across the organization. And then, from an organization perspective, apart from that productivity, is well, how do you actually go about embedding it and implementing it? What else do you need to be thinking about beyond those particular tools to save time on individual jobs? Like, do the jobs change? And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Just
Yeah,
going back
absolutely.
to those productivity apps. Now, Ryan, if my memory serves me correctly, you ran one of, or if not the first AI event globally for Open AI Connector, which I don't know much about. So I'm hoping you can share with us a little bit more about that. But also, I know that was a while ago. So I'm keen to understand from you what promises or exciting things were kind of in that
Yeah,
launch and what kind of things have come to fruition, perhaps, do you think, or
yeah.
observations? So anything from
So
that perspective.
that was back in, I think it might have been April last year, maybe March. I'm just trying to remember. But what it was is and we were one of their first partners globally. Like we had to get special sign off from Microsoft to get access to be able to, so we had to build our own. But what it was is ChatGPT had come out and they had the two cases. Samsung had just put their proprietary code in there, and that was a big story. And there was a lawyer that had used it to build their case law, and it had hallucinated, as in ChatGPT had hallucinated and created pretend case law, which got found out in court by the judge and called out. So it was quite a thing there around these, I guess, the the first raft of big problems where everyone thought it was this amazing tool, it's the dream and the future. So what the proposition was the open AI connector within your Azure SharePoint instance. So it could look at the data that you put in there, meaning that your IP was protected and safe within your instance. Now, it has the ability to go out and pull stuff from the internet and bring it back in and include it with your data for your answer, but it doesn't allow any of your data to go out. And we actually had a Microsoft CTO speaker. We hosted it at Microsoft, and we had a range of speakers there, and we run an actual live demo of the system. Now, I pulled in Z Energy from New Zealand, their annual reports. So we had 6 years of annual reports, 220 pages each, and I just run live examples and said, can you compare the year-on-year sustainability issues and changes? What did Z Energy do over COVID, and what was the impact? And it was amazing. And people just sat there, and you could see it going through their minds of what could we do now that the fear of losing our IP or these hallucinations, because one of the settings that you might have seen, you can actually have the 3 settings, which is factual, balanced, or creative. So by putting it on factual, I also put in a prompt which said, tell us about your mission to Mars. And he says, sorry, we don't have any information on that. We can't answer the question. So of course, Z haven't done any mission to Mars, and that's why I chose something so outlandish to make the point that it could come up and tell you there's no information, we can't answer the question. So that actually launched a couple of projects, and this is we're all talking about the black box systems, and what they were essentially, without going into the detail, which is under NDA, but is using ChatGPT in Azure as the engine for the analysis, but different types of data were being brought in, analysed, and then output in specific ways. And there were 2 different cases of two very different industries that were architected and built using that. So it was quite interesting to see how this black box engine could do the magic, so to speak, and provide the outputs that either used to take hours or days or weeks, whatever, or couldn't be done. So automating process, it was one of them was automating a process that was manual up until that point, and saving roughly around 10 hours per process across, in this company's case, probably around 13,000 times 10 hours.
Wow.
So it was a really good ROI. So that's what I'm looking to, and that's why I'm interested in going to those data in byte events or those types of events where you're seeing engineers putting together systems, and you're starting to learn and how they break down and what are the parts and components, so you can start thinking, if I did this, I could do that. If I tried this, I could achieve that. Obviously, I wouldn't do the building of an LLM myself, but if I had an idea, I can now go to someone with a potential idea to say, let's build this. And that's, in my mind, how we evolve from LLMs. And just my little last thing, as Justin raised, a lot of the discussion is, what is AI? And one of the things is, we all probably know, but potentially someone who's listening to this won't know, is that we don't actually have AI yet. We're using components. So LLMs, which is what ChatGPT is, there's one component. We could be talking about computer vision. We could be talking about machine learning. There's machine learning involved in LLM. But there's a range of components that are getting grouped under AI, but we have not got anywhere near true artificial intelligence yet, which will be, the next exciting massive shift, bigger than the one we're experiencing now.
Yeah, and particularly as it comes alongside, the leaps and bounds of robotics and sort of what you're seeing in that space, and bringing the two together obviously is an interesting, if what sometimes disturbing, evolution, I suppose, in that front. All right, so we were talking about some of the benefits that, Ryan, you mentioned around organizations in those case studies, having the savings around, particularly from a time perspective, being able to get that data and draw the insights from it. I suppose that the additional benefit for organizations is that decisions so often need data and insights in order for them to be made. So when you sort of quantifiably move that speed of data and insights so significantly, then organizations should be able to make fast decisions and therefore be able to move faster in market. So I suppose how people collect and store their data is going to be one of the most important things for them to be able to continue to refine in order to leverage all of these amazing benefits from an AI perspective. Andy, just going to you now. Now, you're responsible for the bringing in and integration of AI into your company. Can you tell us a little bit about what does that responsibility entail, and what are some of the considerations and things that you're having to do as a business leader to do that in that role?
Yeah, so it's quite a new area. So it used to sit under IT. So just to be clear, I have a strong technical background and have worked in technology companies for a long time. So, but my role is in strategy, and it covers the whole of the business. So, but this is a perfect intersection in a way, because I think one mistake that can be made is seeing generative AI as a technology solution and introducing it as that as well. And I think that, if people do that, they're going to potentially come into some big issues. And so I'm trying to go about it in a somewhat of a different way, and not the traditional sort of IT long program launch. More taking the learnings from the agile community, which of course is which is something that SoftEd has done and trained in a long ways, but and very much focusing on the business side of it as well. I think so. That's one area, but also looking at it holistically. So we've also got to go in eyes open. So before Ryan was talking about some of the issues that people were aware of, and I think one of the reasons, coming back to Justin's point about the slow uptake, was that people got really scared after some of these instances, especially large corporates, and so they just threw a big wall up and said, well, until we're confident that we can solve these security issues, we're not going to do anything. And it took quite a while before Microsoft came out with a version of a tool, the Copilot as it's known now as, that I guess solved that problem somewhat. So that's now, I think, one of the reasons that it's taken off, is that people feel more confident that they're not going to risk too much. So I think that was part of it, that some of the underpinning things needed to be in place. So we now have tools, and again, Ryan mentioned another solution, that enterprise quality tools that enable people to use AI in a safe way. And I think the other area that I've also focused on is, what sort of policies do we need as well? So what's the line between being responsible, but also not closing everything up so that people fear doing anything? And it's a fine line, but that's one that I'm trying to work out to sort of push the envelope a little bit, but not too much, and get that balance right. So that's where we've been working with a third party to come up with that policy, but tweak it for our organisation to make sure that we get that sort of, hopefully get the balance right between allowing people to do things and experiment and learn, but also not understanding the risks around that as well. So there's that, and then there's education. So I'm doing a lot of training internally, doing a lot of coaching, of people and teams, a lot of encouragement games. So we're gamifying AI as well, making it fun for people to learn. But really just sort of taking an interest across the business to think about what those parts of the business are doing, and potentially how we can improve that. So looking at it from because we're a training business, so we train a very diverse set of people. So there's enterprise customers that do agile and so on, but the biggest part of our business is actual vocational training, where we're teaching 17 to 20-year-old electricians and plumbers and people from all sorts of different parts of life, giving them a first start in their career. So there's a good opportunity, for how I look at it, to how we improve the outcomes for those learners too. And AI can give us some extra tools and capabilities that can improve their learning as well. So looking at it holistically across the organisation, but also being realistic that we can't do everything. So we've got to pick a few areas that we're going to be looking at, the ones that are big pains, and apply that.
It's a big space, so being able to train everyone internally around how to use the tools effectively. And you were talking about that earlier, Justin, around the different prompts and making sure they're really conversant in this new language, I suppose. But then also, obviously, to your point, how do you use it in your products and services as well to improve the customer experience and things, the fulfillment of sales, the speed of being able to get new products and features out to market, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah,
If we
Bianca, I think
just,
that's.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, I think that's a good point there as well. Like, if we think about maybe go back 6 months ago before ChatGPT Team was released, or ChatGPT Enterprise or Copilot was out there, we were just using, ChatGPT kind of jumping without a harness, if you like, right? Because we didn't have any certainty around IP protection or data privacy. There hadn't been any of these structures put in place, and so a lot of organizations were like, hands up, no, we're not touching it. What I was able to show them, though, is there's so many applications that you can use it for, which don't even go anywhere near what you would consider confidential information. Like even being able to, help you write an email better, or even being able to help you structure a presentation for, a new type of discussion or conversation or pitch that you haven't done before, or learn about a different industry and those sorts of things. So there was a little bit of the identification of data that was going on. But really, there was just so much low-hanging fruit that we could look at, which didn't even get into that risk territory. And I think one of the things that keeps coming up, and I love that both of the other guests have mentioned this, is that this is not an IT project, right? This is not an implementation of a piece of software. The words you've both used, that it's a change management piece. It's a change in mindset about how we're approaching problem solving and opportunity in our organization. And it's really important that it doesn't just sit in as an IT situation, because IT is heavily involved, in the risk mitigation process of that, and that should still happen and should still occur. But we do need to look at the tools that are out there that can really leverage opportunity in the organization as well.
it's a great call out. In that article by Gartner that sort of said, do you need a chief AI? It goes on to say that one of the challenges that organizations have in this space is that they are masquerading strategy with a technology roadmap for AI. They're keeping it in that IT space instead of going, well, actually, how is it going to impact us in terms of our strategy from an economic perspective, a social perspective, a culture perspective, all of the different other elements of the change that's going to occur as a result of having these tools, or changing our position in market accordingly, or anything else that might go with that, and being much more holistic from a strategic approach. So thanks for calling that out for us to go, hey, AI is no longer an IT game. It's more around, this is just another tool that we can use for doing the things that we do. So what are we doing? How can it help? And then what do we need to do differently?
I was going to add to that conversation, and I've got another screen share ready, which is so at the Microsoft Partner Innovate event yesterday, they had a whole session on that whole data loss, IP protection, etc. And I actually wrote a post about it, so maybe you can put that link in the links,
Great.
Which is the summary of the speaker. And in short, it was like any data project where you might be doing a data analysis of sales. You had to cleanse your data. So now what this is forcing is the cleansing of all data within an organization.
Right.
So they used examples of people doing searches, such as, what does the CEO get paid? Now, I used to work with Google, and when we would put a Google search appliance in, we would have to do all those checks privately and clean the system, because people would save files talking about the CEO, or talking about something, or talking about a personal grievance somewhere on their machine that the search appliance could find. Now it's the same with Copilot, this being Microsoft or ChatGPT. They can find it, and there's as you'd expect, a range of funny stories. But the one that they used at the show was quite a nefarious one, where a person had used it to scrape all of the females under 30 and their phone numbers, and it wasn't. And the DLP So I'm going to go to another picture and show you this. Where are we? The DLP. So I'm going to zoom in on this section, the data loss prevention. This part of the system picked it up, and of course, the person got dealt with before it was able to be emailed outside the building. But yes, you can use it. So in our business, I work with consultant recruitment. We use it to scrape sites of what jobs are available. So I won't name the brands, but you can guess them. So we have an Excel spreadsheet created in seconds of all the available jobs, who's doing them, and then use it to analyse who are our existing clients, etc. As you would expect, these are the things that, from a productivity point of view, you can do. But from an internal point of view, those two slides, and what my sort of final point here is that in some ways it's great that Microsoft has got a hold of this technology from OpenAI, because they wrap the sales and marketing and process machine around it and are actually doing and tackling the hard stuff rather than ignoring it and saying, oh, that doesn't happen. They're up front and have a process to solve the problem for businesses so that we can continue marching forward with innovation and progress, which I think is a pretty smart move, which of course means all the competitors in the industry have to follow suit. And that means that we're always we should be going forward in a positive way, rather than having 50% of the picture amazing and 50% of the picture a problem created by the gaps. So I thought I'd just add that it's being taken care of, and it's still a job to be done per organisation, but the tooling process is all there, ready to make it work.
Yeah,
Warren Buffett came out yesterday and said that he saw a video clone of himself that he was so convinced that was actually him that he could see himself potentially transferring money to someone, right? And we know that there's that case in Hong Kong as well. I think it was about $25 million that got transferred from a fake call. So one of the hot tips I always put across is like, have that safe word, family safe word, business safe word, that if you're going to do something that falls outside the ordinary and it doesn't kind of seem right, like, just have that, one last protection with you that's still stored in only the human vault.
Yes. It does go to say
50 Shades of Grey become more purposeful than we ever imagined.
Takes on all new meaning. I suppose that's another good reason that somebody in the organisation should be looking at the future and have that responsibility, much like yourself, Andy, in your role, even if it's not a title, being a hat, because there's going to be regulations that will start coming out, I imagine, in this space as well, that will try to put some controls and mechanisms in place as well.
Yeah, and I think responsible AI is just that, and that's that balance. So part of the education is on the other side. So there's the positive side of productivity and creativity and all these other good things, which of course is the main, for me, the more interesting thing. But it would be irresponsible for us not to be talking about the other downsides as well, just so that people are aware, including things like hallucinations and all those sort of things that we're all quite familiar with. That someone who's not, I just say that AI is the best mansplainer around. It's incredibly confident when it's wrong.
Yeah. Speaking of hallucinations, Ryan, you'll be pleased to know that in the one that you talked about, which was the case where they created a fictional case study, apparently, according to the Social Science Research Network, ChatGPT-4 has actually passed the bar exam and outperformed humans in 5 of the 7 categories for the MBE, which is one of the subsections for that exam. So perhaps it's improving in its ability to handle legal situations and cases.
Well, I'm not surprised, and I would actually want to ask and investigate, is it ChatGPT based off the corpus of the internet, in which case it's got all of the bad information, all the biased information, everything in there with it, or is it a version that has, so it's the trained version, but it's being using the textbook data of the textbook law, because you can set up your own separate ChatGPT using the engine basically, but pointing it at your own textbook to use, just like I did with Z Energy, right? So we could have just the answers from the Z Energy public statements, or we could go and add stuff from the internet. And when it was just Z Energy, we couldn't get any information about mission to Mars. Look, I've used it to So I've stepped into this is my second full-time role since not shutting AFQI down, but putting it on in hibernation, which is a long story for another podcast. But I use ChatGPT to say what are the benefits of a managed service provider? What should a client be looking for? What are the pitfalls? And then similarly, coming into recruitment, how do you operate in an employer's market? What are the things that a recruitment organisation can do and achieve for a client when it's employer's market, and might say they don't need us, and instantly just spits out all the information, and then you can go cut that down to one page. So you can summarize it to one page. You don't have to read the whole textbook. You don't have to do the 3 years of study. You can just get the answer. So I'm not surprised that it passed. I'd actually say I'm surprised that it only passed 5 out of 7 better than a human. But I don't know what the other 2 are. They might be something that require something that are not textbook learning. But totally.
And another good call out.
So those benchmarks get beaten all the time.
Yeah, and another good call out back to the importance of clean data and how we're using data effectively in organisations and how clean is it in reality. All right, we're up on time for this round. We're going to do a part 2, which Justin, Ryan and Andy have promised me they will sign up for. And in that one, we're going to explore more about this. Well, we're saving all this time, and somebody else might have gone to manually cut and paste and copy from websites and put it into a spreadsheet, but now we can go and scrape things and do things. So obviously things are changing, and so the future workforce is also changing. In our next episode, we'll explore more around that. Plus, we're going to be diving in more into the detail about what Justin, Ryan and Andy feel that we should be thinking about in terms of AI in our organisations. So we're going to leave on some final comments from our panel today. And in that, can you tell us a little bit about, if people want to learn more from you, hear more from you, read more about you, how do they go and do that? So we'll kick off with you, Justin, and then we'll go to you, Ryan and Andy. Tell us about how people can get more of you.
Sure. Well, look, my background was in advertising. I ran a creative agency for 17 years, and the last year and a half I've been helping businesses implement AI. I thought it was time to bring those two things together, and so on the 5th of June in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, I'm hosting the AI Marketing Summit, which is really helping teach some of my best hints, tips, tricks on how to use AI to turbocharge your marketing. And marketing and creativity is one of those areas where what we've seen in this explosion of AI can really push a business forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And make sure that we get the links, and we'll put that in the description as well for people. Over to you, Ryan.
I live on LinkedIn, so don't call me, don't email me, send me a connection request on LinkedIn, and we'll chat and start there. And I think the sort of summary or final word on AI is that we're only scratching the surface. And I think that the point that Justin made was ChatGPT put this into the hands of the consumers, and that's what's changed the game dramatically. But it's still actually a very basic tool. It's a prediction engine that predicts the next best words, and that's how we get the amazing answers we get. But we haven't had something so different compared to having Google search for so long and it providing a return on your keyword search, which could be pretty bad results or good results depending on someone's SEO. So now this is not dependent on the SEO quality of what someone's doing. It's dependent on the quality of the trained engine and the data that it's based on. But this is only a stepping stone towards true AI and some of the uses that can be made with it, such you talk about robotics. We've got a pretty exciting future. And I think that we should be excited about the future, not worried about the change.
Yeah, great call out. Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, well, we're talking about search. This week is the rumoured launch of OpenAI's or ChatGPT search. So that maybe is the 9th is the rumour. So that'll be interesting to see if that's going to shake up Google and search, combining both. But we'll see. So that's just one of many things coming along. I think the other one that we'll talk next time around is is agents. That seems to be another big thing that's coming, and that's effectively combining, chats to do a specific task or set of tasks. That's sort of gaining a lot of prominence, and I think that we'll see a lot more of that. And that has the potential to really quite revolutionise work.
Wow. All right, we'll talk more on that on the next one. And Andy, where can people find out more about you?
So I publish on LinkedIn, not exclusively like Ryan, but mainly through our community, through the Business Agility Meetup community. Published on our site there, and on our blogs at Skills and Software as well. So a range of things. I'll send you some links.
Fabulous. Okay, well, that's a wrap. As promised, within almost the 5-minute mark, thank you for joining us today, and appreciate everyone who's listening as well. Thank you, and look forward to the next chat.
Sure.